Hey y'all, what's happening? Welcome to Towers Take on Facebook Live. I am just in the process of getting the web page queued up so I can answer your questions. And let's see.
What's happening?
Whoops, yeah, there we go. Got to mute that as usual. That happens about once a month, doesn't it? We do this once a week, and that happens about one out of every four. Who is first here today? Wayne Folan. Congratulations. And right in there with him were Robert L. Moody and Marshall Fleming and my old buddy Mitch McCarty and my nephew Ron Weeks, Felicia Crowder, who I used to work with at the Athens Banner Herald years ago. We will get around to some more greetings here in a minute. Welcome to my home office. Welcome to Thursday. Welcome to week 2 of Georgia's spring football practice. Pretty uneventful so far. Not a whole lot to report there. Probably the biggest deal going on is what's going on right now. The reason that I'm here and not over there at Georgia's football complex is the coaches clinic is going on. And, for whatever reason, Kirby, that would be Coach Kirby Smart, the head coach of the football team, decided to restrict access because they have, anywhere from 700 to 1,000 coaches attending this year's coaches clinic. I hope you got a chance to read my Towers Take yesterday, about it's like everything else with Kirby Smart. He goes big with most everything, and he has gone big with Georgia's coaches clinic, and they have, Bill Belichick and Sean McVay, and of course Dan Quinn, the Falcons coach. 3 NFL coaches speaking and teaching at that clinic. And, of course, they're practicing at the same time, but one of the things that Kirby wanted to be sure to do was to provide access to their meetings and everything to all those coaches that are coming there for the clinic, which will be 3 days, today, Friday, and Saturday. So I have, a lot new to report on football in terms of like what happened today, because we weren't able to go there and see what they were actually doing today, whether it was full pads or not pads, and if anything had happened. And so far there's only been one major injury hitting on the wooden desk here for you guys. In that Devad Wilson went down with the ACL injury. As far as we know, we haven't heard of any other major injuries. However, now I haven't posted, I apologize, my Towers Take column for the day just yet. I was really about to do it, and then Hannah Chalker reminded me, hey, time for the show. So I will post that shortly after we get off of this. But there is one major injury that has gone unreported, and I want to report that here live to you today, and that is Kevin Butler. Georgia's volunteer kicking coach is down. It wasn't actually an injury, and it was not unexpected. He underwent hip replacement surgery to his right hip, which has served him so well in his life, as well as his left hip. And actually, this is the second hip replacement for Kevin Butler, the National Collegiate Hall of Fame kicker and All-Pro kicker with the Chicago Bears, Super Bowl winning quarterback. Kevin has indeed lived a charmed life, but he's hurting today, and so any access you might have, he's pretty active on the social media platforms and everything else. Kevin is. This one, I understand this one, all kidding aside, has been much more painful. Austin Moore says, you scared me to death. That was the intention. Hello, Carlos. Hello, Troy. Troy Sadowski's here. Carlos Cardoza, as always. And speaking of Carlos, our own Carlos is out of the hospital and doing much better. Y'all might remember me mentioning him earlier as being in a horrific car accident. But yeah, no other major injuries on the football team as far as we know. And Kevin Kevin's hip replacement, this one's just much more painful and difficult than the other one was for whatever reason. And those, anybody who knows anybody who's been through those, it's an extremely painful operation and everything. It's a miracle that what they can do with that technology. Like so much in the medical field nowadays, it really is amazing. So what to get to this week? So the coaches clinic is going on. We're in week 2 on a spring football practice. Melinda Moe wants to know, and I actually can't answer this for you, Melinda. Good question. Will Kevin help the kickers next year? I don't think so. He is a student assistant, technically, as you all know. Certainly he made a difference with Georgia's kicking game last year. If you saw him on the sidelines, he was very active in his communications with all the kickers and Rodrigo Blankenship in particular. Now, he didn't, both Kevin and Rod and others that know him, have told me, he wasn't involved with Rodrigo from the standpoint of telling him how to, how he should kick it and things like that. It's like a golf swing. It's a very delicate operation. And really, ultimately, I think Rodrigo Blankenship's father is probably the most involved when it comes to the technical aspect of Rod's kick. And actually, his dad was working with him in the indoor practice facility earlier this year. I saw some cool footage that Rod's sister Trina posted on Facebook, which was looked very impressive. He was kicking a very, very straight ball. I'll say that. But anyway, maybe this student assistantship can carry over to a second year. It actually, you guys have been around a while, like I have. Hey, Troy, and like Troy Sadowski has, may recall. This Bill Hartman, the famous Bill Hartman Jr., who the scholarship is named for at Georgia, the Bill Hartman Scholarship, the late Bill Hartman, actually at the end of his career had to go from being a volunteer assistant to being a student assistant, and he went back to grad school as like an 80-year-old in order to do that. He may have done it more than one season, but I just don't think any of us have broached the subject directly with either Kevin or Coach Smart. I broached it with Kevin a little bit. Here's what I do know. I do know Kevin wants to stay involved with Georgia in some capacity if possible. He just wants to help his alma mater any way he can. He has a business interest in things, and still lives in Atlanta, in Gwinnett County, actually. So I don't know. We will get around to that, though, because there's a lot of questions here. So obviously you guys are interested in it. And Kevin, I hope if you happen to be here, there's a bunch of well wishes for you on here. And you guys find Kevin on social media and send him, warm thoughts and prayers, as they say. Hello, Stephen Weeks. There's another extended family member. Steve Walden has a good question, wants to know any word on the right tackle battle between Isaiah Wilson and Cade Mays. Nothing directly on that battle, and again, we're not ever able to see a lot of 11 on 11. Hello, Jesse Lee Kinney. Sweater Man is here, and we will talk some basketball in a minute. But I think that situation is good from one standpoint, is that Georgia seems to be so happy with the left tackle situation. There's no talk of moving Andrew Thomas back to right tackle. I wrote on Andrew Thomas earlier this week, and Sam Pittman, and then his coach from high school, Andrew Thomas's coach from high school, Kevin Johnson. That's a name to remember. He's the offensive coordinator and line coach at Pace Academy, and he continues to be an active coach and mentor in Andrew Thomas's life. I wrote about that earlier this week on Dog Nation. I hope you can get there. Go back if you didn't see the story. That story you can still find on Dog Nation. And Andrew's just a terrific player, y'all. You know this, but to start 15 games as a true freshman, every meaningful snap, he battled through some injuries, stayed on the field, and played at a high level, freshman All-America. And now he's making the transition from right tackle to left tackle. That ain't a small deal. But I do think, as Charlie Warner told me when I was asking about it, he said he expects Andrew Thomas to be a future NFL first-round pick, and that's generally what you hear about him. He was not the highest rated of all of Georgia's offensive linemen that Georgia has recruited to an outstanding degree the last couple of years, such as Cade Mays and Isaiah Wilson, the highest ranked lineman that they had last year coming in. But Andrew Thomas, the thing that Sam Pittman and Kirby Smart and everybody's alluded to him, his just technique and fundamentals are so strong that he came to Georgia with. You add that with quick feet, strength, 6'5", 320-pound frame, and then you've got the makings for a great lineman. Same thing, that's why everybody's so excited about Jamari Sawyer. Jamari Sawyer played left guard at Pace Academy. Can you imagine that? So it's pretty evident why Pace Academy was able to win a state championship in the fall of 2015, having those guys starting on the left side of the line. And so now Jamari Sawyer is not here yet, is not in spring practice. He'll enroll in May, as I understand it, and join the competition on the offensive line. And, right now, left guard belongs to Kendall Baker, a rising senior, and I assume Kendall is working with the first team right now, not being able to see him every day out there. But, that's a position that Georgia could improve at. Competition is ongoing all the time. And I would imagine Jamari Sawyer will have an opportunity this year to compete for a starting job at left guard and certainly eventually. So, so Kevin Johnson, talking to him earlier this week, the Pace offensive coach, that's certainly his hope that those two guys will end up starting on the left side of the line, along with Andrew Thomas, to be reunited over there. And that if they're both as good as they have been, and Kevin Johnson has made them, that should be good for Georgia on the left side of the line. Greg Cook here is bringing up the softball, and actually I've got a rare softball note here to impart on you. I didn't realize. I mean, I get news releases and stuff on all this all the time, but Georgia's softball team is rolling too. Now, I wrote about the baseball team earlier this week. Let me see a show of hands if you read that column, because it's interesting. Like me to write about, non-revenue sports anymore, because it's so few people really click on it. But I wrote about the baseball team earlier this week, which is leading the SEC right now with a 5-1 record. Just swept South Carolina, took 2 of 3 from Alabama on the road. Now they're in a war right now with number 15 ranked Texas A&M over at Foley Field, and they were losing 2-0 early. But Georgia's softball team, y'all, is 30-3. They're ranked number 6 right now. They have a pitcher and senior right-hander Brittany Gray, who is 15-0. And I realize how pitching works in fast pitch softball, but y'all, that is something. She's got an ERA of $1 and something, and they have a huge series this weekend at Tennessee up on Rocky Top, which Tennessee is a softball power as well. I mean, all of the SEC is a softball power, but the softball team just had a huge series win over Florida. Florida is the queen of the SEC fast pitch softball, and Georgia took 2 of 3 from them, I think, this past weekend, or swept it, whatever it was. A lot of questions about Zeus, Zamir White. There's not a lot I can tell you other than he's running on the side. He looks good. His ACL injury was not, major. I mean, it's any ACL injury is major, but my understanding is, by and large, this was a very manageable injury. But I do not expect Georgia to rush Zeus back. They don't need to. Georgia obviously has plenty of tailbacks to choose from, and even, however you want to characterize his knee injury, That's not something you rush a running back from, even if he appears that he can play. Hey, Hal Love, you are late, buddy, but you made it, so we're glad you're here. And no, I haven't been to practice today because they didn't let us. But I do. So anyway, I think Zeus, Zamir White, the tailback from North Carolina, will play this year at some point. However it works out, I mean, it's either it'll be they'll ease him in to the rotation, see what they can get out of him, or they'll spring him on somebody, you know, whether it be a Florida in midseason or something like that. I just, you know, and I may be wrong about this. I mean, you know, Ron Corson or Kirby Smart aren't sharing a lot of details about this, and of course they're not. But I just, having been through these things, I mean, you know, a full year before you can expect to really be like you were before, realistically. And but look, let's be clear about this. Zamir White might be the best tailback they got over there, including DeAndre Swift and everybody else. But that's a special commodity, and you'll introduce him if and when, you know, the correlation of his readiness and Georgia's neediness collide. And nobody can be sure about when that is, and Georgia will manage that very, very carefully because of the importance of Zeus to them as a team and as a person, as in a career, and then because they got that guy, they got DeAndre Swift and you know, Elijah Holyfield, who just looks like a beast this year. I mean, he's always looked like a beast, but he is just so cut right now. If the job were to do curls of the opposing team, I think Holyfield would be in great shape. But you know. And, you know, James Cook and you know, Harrion and everybody else Georgia has at tailback puts him in a position to be pretty good. Okay, some other questions. Let me get to the we'll get back to football. We'll wrap up on football. A lot of questions in here. Jesse Kinney, foremost among them, but a lot of people ask about Tom Crean and what's going on with Georgia basketball. Colt Williams here wants to know how are our chances of landing at Hagen's and King, as Ashton Hagens and Elias King, 5-star recruits that wanted to go to Georgia before Mark Fox got fired. I think they're really good with Tom Crean. Tom Crean is working hard to get recruiting shored up. I'm sure he's gotten in front of or had communication with everybody he possibly could at this point. Jonas Hayes has been, you know, out there on the road with Crean, and I imagine all of Georgia's assistants have, because they're still under contract to Georgia. And you know, I guarantee you they're working hard as they possibly can to possibly repair or restore the relationships with those recruits. And Georgia at one point was looking at the #1 class for 2019. So, you know, all of that will take care of itself. But listen, hiring Tom Crean is not going to hurt you in recruiting. Anybody who saw his introductory news conference or anything, you know, I mean, that guy's an absolute dynamo. He's a great recruiter. He's a great coach. You know, whether he is you know, an upgrade from Mark Fox, I don't know. Mark Fox is a great man. Tom Crean certainly has greater overall credentials. Georgia's paying him more money, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But we'll see. Georgia's a tough job, and there's a lot of idiosyncrasies as to why Georgia, you know, hasn't been as great in basketball from a sustained standpoint as a lot of people think they could be or should be or can be. And so we'll see. And I want to get back to Crean at some point. Listen, I talked to some writers I know who've covered him, some IU grads, some people I know. I haven't been able to get back to this in my Towers take on Crean, but you know, it's interesting. His situation up at IU was pretty interesting. You know, he inherited a mess. Took a while to get him out of the mess. Then he got him to 316. Got him to the Sweet 16. But you know, they have high standards at IU, and weren't able to get him past the Sweet 16 before you knew it. He was out. So you know, imperfect. You know, I mean, you know, it's hard, man. To as everybody can see. to get deep in that tournament, man. It's a big deal. And anyway, I think there's a lot of excitement regarding Georgia basketball. It'll be tough recovering from Yante Maton's departure, but Georgia has a lot of pieces to work with, and they're recruiting really, really well. And as Brian Nash points out, just the fact that Georgia was willing to step up and pay Crean, this is Brian Nash pointing it out, $3.2 million, says that puts him in the top 10 of the highest paid coaches. I can't validate that. I don't know if that's the case. Seth may have quantified that at some point. I know it's way more than Georgia's ever paid a coach, a basketball coach, and it's close to what Georgia's paying Kirby Smart for now. That'll change eventually. I wrote about that on the Towers Take if you want to go back and read about it, but I would imagine Kirby's about to get a very, very big raise once to get through it. Hello, Tom Gross. Good to see you. Ron Armstead wants to know about junior college tackle Jackson, and that's a Centel question. I don't know who that is. Let's see. What else do we have here? Brian Nash wants to know about Kirby's tie, what Kirby thinks of Crean's ties with Harbaugh. Crean was most excited about getting his text from Kirby Smart, and I understand that Mary Beth Smart and Crean's wife have already been in touch with each other. I think that's going to be a powerful little duo. They're going to help each other out, and there's no way that Kirby's presence can't help Crean, and I know he'll do everything he can to help, just like he did with Mark Fox, and same thing with Crean in Georgia football. He does not. People asked Crean about if he was concerned about Georgia being a football school, and he scoffed at that, and well, he would, being from the Harbaugh family. His wife is a Harbaugh. So anyway, and Hal Love points out Crean is not inheriting a mess here. He's not. The program is on solid footing. You could, certainly from a talent standpoint, that's questionable heading into next season. But we certainly need Georgia certainly needs Georgia to play a lot better. Shelton Tucker is pointing out that Kirby needs to become a $6 million man, and he may. I don't know exactly where Georgia looked at more than ever, especially because of the SEC network and all the money coming into the league. Those things are the market dictates kind of where that goes, and let's just say that Kirby is strongly positioned coming off of a national championship appearance, an SEC championship, and where he falls right now at $3.75 million a year is in the bottom half of the league, and a lot of other coaches. You got Saban and Jimbo Fisher of Texas A&M up at the top of the league. Technically, I think Saban is not the top guy because of the way his contract works. But essentially, he makes $11 million a year once you count it all up, and so it's Saban and everybody else. But Jimbo Fisher's making $7.5 million a year. Let's see, Dan Mullen, got hired at Florida at $6.2 million. And Gus Malzahn already got a raise. The team that Georgia beat in the championship already got a raise up there, I believe, in the $6 million. So, the way Kirby is playing and the way Georgia is handling, I expect him to get up there in the top few of the league. Colt Williams wants to know, what do I see LeCount doing this season? I see him playing a lot, possibly starting. He was Richard LeCount III was one of only a few freshmen to play I don't think he played in every game, but almost every game for Georgia last year. A lot of that was on special teams, but he started a game or two at safety, and he is a special athlete, and he's in the competition for safety, and probably they'll look at him at that nickel position, but I think essentially safety. Which leads to another question. I can't remember who asked it. I apologize for not pointing you out by name, but about how the secondary is looking. And man, you talk about a wide open competition there. They're really, really intriguing. Probably the most intriguing storyline there's a lot of intriguing storylines, but one of the most intriguing position battles is for that nickel position because Georgia's kind of, you can tell Kirby's. I mean, he's been pretty open about their kind of struggling to find an ideal person to fit that position. And the nickel is interesting. I mean, Georgia's had all kinds of different players play the nickel position. You had Josh Harvey Clemens, who was a lot like Lorenzo Carter and somewhat of an outside linebacker in physique. So Georgia's looking at Walter Grant working out their son. Lorenzo Carter fielded more snaps than you probably realize at that position last year. But then you had Aaron Davis, who was just really fantastic, maybe a little bit strong. But you had Aaron Davis, and before that you had Mo Smith, who were, kind of pure DB types that filled the bill there. And, they were very, very good. So, so Georgia's, working a lot of different people down there. And then they got, Tyreek McGee and some others who could work. And they really need some of these guys like Trey Bishop and some of those big guys that they recruited last year to come through at that position for them. But it's hard to tell. DB is a very, very complicated and difficult position to play. I can't emphasize that enough. And Trey Bishop, Eric Stokes, Georgia's recruited some Amari Speed. Those guys are mostly corners. Jarvis Wilson, I don't know. He's got to figure into something. He was a one-time starter here. But Georgia has 12 DBs competing for 4 or 5 spots back there. And that's going to be a great competition. There's a lot of competition on the defense. I mean, you're placing all your linebackers essentially. Natrez Patrick is out there practicing, but we don't know exactly when he's going to be available. So you're looking at both your inside positions, both your outside positions. No question DeAndre Walker and Walter Grant will probably fill those positions. We're running out of time here. We only got a couple of more minutes, so let me get to Daniel Holtz's question. I'm going to try to get your question. Let's do rapid fire now. Daniel Holtz wants to know, is Nada stepping up as a leader? Had a chance to talk to Nada the other day after practice. He sure sounded the part. He sounded really good. He looks great. Nada's so much bigger now than he used to be. So is everybody. That they want to, they go up or down. Like Isaiah Wilson, I thought, and Notori Johnson, I think look really good physically, have lost weight and look more svelte than they were before. Andrew Thomas, too. These guys have kind of reconfigured their bodies a little bit in the offseason. Who is this pointing it out here? Stacy Goble talking about Richard comes downhill with bad intentions. Richard LeCount is a tough football player. I really like him and a great ball hawk, and I think he's going to do a lot of good things. Yeah, Tony Porter points out that Leonard Floyd played at the star position some, and Georgia's done that a lot with linebackers that had the athletic ability to do that. Brian Nash points out the tight ends seem excited having Chaney in his position. I've weighed in this some. Seth has weighed in on it, but I definitely believe that Jim Chaney moving to the tight ends coach, and James Coley working now with quarterbacks and being co-offensive coordinator. I think this is a good thing for Georgia. Don't misconstrue it. I don't think it's any diminishing of power for Jim Chaney. I think it's freeing him up to where he can be more of a walk-around offensive coordinator. That's something that is very common in the NFL, and he's still going to be the play caller. And I think Georgia's offense is generally going to be more open and, pass a little bit more just because of Fromm's maturity, Coley's presence, the wide receiver core overall being as good as it is. All of those factors weigh into it. But I think they're going to be more pass worthy. Jay Clark is in here. Hello, Jay, the LSU associate head coach, and Ron Higgins. So we got some Louisiana flavor showing it up on the podcast, guys. I'm sorry we're about to sign off here in just a couple of minutes, but I have had a lot of people asking me about the LSU football game and what I thought about that. Coming, right in the middle of the season, October 13th, Georgia at LSU. Georgia has 3 big away games, if you ask me. Early in the year at South Carolina and at Missouri, and in the middle of the year at LSU. I know we talk about Georgia's schedule being pretty good, but pretty advantageous. But I'm telling you, those are tough trips, and LSU's a tough trip. I don't care what kind of team they have, whatever year. I don't think anybody's predicting greatness necessarily for LSU next season, but that's going to be tough. On the Bayou at night. I'm anticipating it being at night. It almost always is. But yeah, I see the offense being really, really good this year, and maybe that'll overcome any shortcomings they have on the defensive side of the ball. Actually, we're out of time. I apologize. Doesn't it seem to fly? Maybe we'll go a little bit longer here in the not too distant future. Hey, listen, real quick, while I'm thinking about it, I am. It's spring break for my kid next week. I'm going out of town, having a little spring break respite. With my son, so we will not have a Towers take at this time next week. We will not have one next Thursday, but we'll resume right after I get back from that, and certainly I'll be tanned, and I'll have all kinds of new content. Don't hold me to that. And I'm about to post the Towers take. As soon as we get off of here, I got to finish this Towers take. I apologize, I'm late getting it up. Been dealing with a lot of other stuff today. It's a busy time of the year. It's football's going on and everything else. So I'm sorry I have to go, but I do want to thank y'all for being here. And hey, listen, send your questions in to Question of the Day, and we'll get to those that way. If I don't get to them, Seth will. And I'll go on and read your comments after this is over. You can access this on the Dog Nation Facebook page all week at any time to see what I had to say and what you guys had to say. Thanks for hanging out with me, and thanks for reading Dog Nation every day. And be sure to get that app on your phone, y'all. Thanks, and good night.